Welcome back to Focus Today. Steve Johnson with you, and Todd Friel, who's writing me a very large check, it would appear. Todd Friel from Wretched TV. You see it on theDove TV, and really on theDove TV, he's everywhere, including right here, right now on Focus Today. We have a secret camera, and he just discovered we're there. Todd, top of the morning to you. Put a lot of zeros after any denominational number you want on there.
Silly rabbit, I'm not writing you a check. I'm emptying my brain with my new Christian adult coloring book.
Is that right?
Steve, have you heard about this?
No, I haven't. There's a Christian adult coloring book?
No, there are 75 of them, last count. I'm not kidding. Take a look at the top 10 Christian books that are for sale. 3 of them are adult coloring books. Adult coloring books. And there is a reason that these things are so popular, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Somebody sent this in to me. We were talking on the radio about this or that, and somebody sent in the word mandala, M-A-N-D-A-L-A.
Yes. Yeah, Peter, Paul, and Mary sang about that. Yes.
It's a Buddhist practice where the practitioner colors. You know those circular, think like stained glass window, really intricate, usually swirly, paisley designs. Well, each one of those little areas that you're supposed to color is called a tantra, and it has a meaning. And the purpose of the mandala is to just get you to zone out and be connected with the great big nothingness of the universe. In other words, it's sort of like yoga. It makes your brain empty so that you get connected to nothing. It's the salvific practice of Hindus and Buddhists. And we've taken that concept and we're now calling them Christian adult coloring books. 3 of the top 10 bestsellers. People are gobbling these up, and you're going to notice these when you run to the grocery store and look at the book section. Barnes & Noble, Sam's Club, Walmart, all carrying adult coloring books. They are Eastern, and you can't slap a Bible verse on them and make them Christian.
Now, that's interesting. You know, I had seen the phenomenon of how adults are using coloring books. I didn't realize it had gone into this era. Do you think this is the next version of what I remember a few years ago, where Christians used to get into yoga saying, well, I don't believe in the background of yoga, but it's a great meditational concept to use. Is this the next flavor of that, or is this something more?
You're exactly right. I don't know who brought Christian yoga into, I think what happens is something becomes popular in culture, and then somebody goes, we can make a buck on that, or we can Christianize that, or let's give them the benefit of the doubt. That could help Christians too. It can't. It's like saying there's Buddhist Lord's Supper. You can't have Hindu baptism in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You can't combine them. And I get it. I understand that people, it kind of empties your brain a little bit. But it opens up your brain when our brains are supposed to be engaged. We're supposed to be of sober mind and on the alert. Our brains are to be transformed from glory unto glory when we engage our brains, not empty our brains. So I think this is our latest trend in evangelical Christianity, and I fear it's a dangerous one. I also would suggest it doesn't work. You color, you get a little mindless, you get a little, and then all of a sudden you stop coloring and the kids start screaming again, or the stock market crashes and you're back to square one. But this is what it tells me, is that people are stressed. They are looking for a coping mechanism. They're trying to get some sort of calm, and that makes it an excellent opportunity for Christians to go, oh, let me introduce you to the Prince of Peace. Because he will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. It comes through Jesus, not a mindless coloring book.
What you're saying is that I'm going to have to take my coexist bumper sticker off my Prius. Is that what you're telling me, Todd? Is that what I'm gathering from this?
Church discipline. Very, very. Now, to indicate how stressed people are, massage therapists and psychoanalysts are now saying they're getting more people coming into their office because they are stressed out about, guess what?
You fill in the blank for me.
Donald Trump!
Oh, you know what? You're right. I had seen this before, and it's becoming a burgeoning business.
Yeah.
And Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz are also part of that. I think they're getting some massages because of that too. You know, I wanted to move into this. I'm seeing some of this going on here. You know, this I've got to tell you, I think the word circus has come to mind, and I don't want to be throwing it away, but I've never seen a presidential, I don't even call them debates. I'm not sure even what to call this.
Hold on, Steve. Barnum and Bailey called. They're offended.
I see. Okay. Well, Ted Cruz did mention, okay, it's time for the dancing bears to leave, and all the rest, and to get serious. I don't think we've seen this before. I think there's a lot of underlying currents here. But since we last talked to you, what is your take on what you're seeing now that we've kind of honed it down to maybe just two people now? It looks like it's Ted Cruz and it's Donald Trump. I mean, the rest are just, the numbers aren't there for them to move forward. Are you seeing? Let me ask you this. Do you think Ted Cruz still has serious Christians who may be looking at him? I see that, though, for people who say, I'm a Christian, I'm following Donald Trump as well. What are you seeing now in this stretch of the race playing out?
Last night I backslid and watched a little of CNN. We're all stumblers, we all fall. I watched CNN for a few minutes, and a secular commentator was talking about the evangelical vote. And she even said, I think this whole word evangelical has lost its meaning. That it is not this monolithic group that you can count on because of values, life, and marriage, and limited government, Romans 13 style. She said it just seems so fragmented that instead of calling them evangelicals, you need to start calling them people who go to church regularly, people who actually give money to the body. In other words, she was recognizing there's a lot of people who call themselves evangelicals but aren't. And I think that's why we're seeing the split in the evangelical vote. Because evangelicals, well, half of them are using Christian adult coloring books, and the other half are going to the church. Some of them are all kinds of wonky directions. So I don't think anybody can count on the evangelical community. I don't even know what it is anymore, frankly.
Yeah, because when I think back to Jerry Falwell and that whole era of the moral majority and all the rest, it certainly is not that group of people anymore. It's not defined like that. Right now, what are your concerns as we're heading up towards deciding on a candidate, both on the Democrat and Republican side? What is it that kind of gets your concern up right now?
The infighting in the church. Look, I get it. This is a realm, and it has some importance. I understand. I do not believe that we Christians, we turn our back on politics, we turn our back on the government. I don't believe that. It is a realm that we can enter into to do good, and we should, as much as it is incumbent upon us, and we are able to do so. We should do good. So I'm not one of those people. But what troubles me is that we're seeing high-profile Christians now, Orthodox guys. What do you mean you like Trump? You like Rubio. He can't win. And we are expending Christian capital in front of the world by hammering one another over politics and speculation. Look, so much of this, it's interesting. I can be a political junkie myself. I've got that bent. I can watch Fox News a lot if I let myself. But we need to be careful that we don't. I know this is the guy, and if he gets that many votes, and if your guy, and against Hillary, if Bernie's a split convention, and we pontificate as if we know. And the realm of politics is kind of the realm of, well, maybe, because all kinds of things can happen, but we are drawing lines inside of evangelical Christianity, and we're making enemies in the realm of politics with one another when we should be in unity.
Yeah. There's an aspect of this that I want to get your take on it, too, and it concerns me greatly. I have a lot of baby boomer friends whose kids now are millennials, and I read a recent article about how millennials, if they voted, would decide this election. I think a lot of people who are older than that don't realize the voting power that could be there, and some of them are. For whatever reason, they're following Bernie Sanders. There's a lot. He's got a youthful following. It's not as great as he would want it to be, of course, but Hillary would love to have that. And the concern I have is that we have assumed, I think you and I talked about this before, people who've been raised in the church, their kids will also be Christians, and then you realize, I'm hearing them talk, and the flags are going up. I'm not seeing a Christian worldview or, I don't want to say the word lifestyle, that sounds so trendy, but a Christian value of who Jesus Christ is to them. And I'm thinking these people are going out and they're now procreating and having kids, and we're kind of losing a generation of millennials because they're not following what their parents did. And I realize that's not a new thing. But it still is surprising to me that it's happening in what I would have otherwise called solid Christian homes, where there hasn't been a lot of infighting. The kids haven't rebelled. They've just decided to move in a different direction. Are you noticing that trend? Are you seeing that where you live as well?
A recent poll, it might have been Barna. It was 51 or 53% of millennials, 18 to 34. They believe that socialism is a better form of government than capitalism.
Well, that pretty well says it. Yeah.
No wonder why they're voting for Bernie and Hillary. They love socialism. Now, interestingly, if you ask one of those kids who loves socialism, do you like the idea of the government controlling Apple, Google, and Facebook? And they say, absolutely not. Well, that's what socialism is. They don't even know the definition, that it really is about who controls production. They don't know what it is, but they like it. And I think, could be wrong, but I think the reason for it, it's not because older evangelicals have been neglecting these conversations. They do talk about them. We do discuss politics at our kitchen table, worldviews, what's happening, capitalism, abortion, marriage, but we're not connecting it to the Bible. We're basically, we talk about it. We say, oh, capitalism, that's the way to go. But we never explain to the kids, and here's all the Bible verses that point toward capitalism as the more biblical structure as opposed to socialism. So kids, they know it. They heard us talking about it. But in our very postmodern culture where truth is individualized, they still look at us with a little bit of postmodernism, even as a professing evangelical, and say, well, that's just their truth. It's not grounded in anything. This is my truth. And they have veered to the left on us.
Well, that's a very good point. A lot to think about there. Let's take a quick break. We're talking with Todd Friel. He's the host of Wretched TV. You'll see him right here on the Dove. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the whole political system, where we're at now. And if you're not a political junkie, don't worry. As you're seeing, this is going much further than that. This has to get down to what you believe and how you're going to express what you believe to somebody else, which may, in fact, help you decide maybe who's going to be president. So we're going to be talking about that and the whole lesser of two evils concept. Have you ever been in one of those votes where you've decided, well, I don't like them either, but who's the better? We're going to delve into that coming up in just a few minutes. Keep it tuned right here. Todd Friel on Focus Today.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today. Steve Johnson with you, along with Todd Friel from Wretched TV. You see him on the Dove TV all the time, and Todd, I see the early show that you have before we hit the air at 6 o'clock. You're on the Dove TV, so it's an amazing thing, yeah. And now he's live and in person. Good to have you here. We're talking a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing, specifically in the presidential election. But you know, this is how we have to view the world in all of our decision making and what's going to be coming up, and how important it is to be engaged with what is going on. And I agree with you. It's easy to be a junkie on some of these all news channels. You find it's kind of like watching Netflix, where you've watched an entire series at one sitting and all the popcorn is gone and you're wondering where the root beer went. But I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you about this. You know, there is, and I'm seeing this to be quite a dividing line, Christians who will say, yeah, I'm a Christian. Their eyes glaze over when you talk about candidates, who you might be voting for, what the issues are, and why you might like one person over another from a biblical standpoint, and the eyes just glaze over. I don't think that's been really considered too much. And so what we end up doing sometimes is saying, well, you know, who's the candidate? I don't like any of them, so who is the less of the evil? And I'm thinking, as this election is coming up, we could be deciding it that way. What are your thoughts about that engagement with Christians and deciding on who is the better of the worst?
For as long as I can recall, voting for the lesser of two evils in November has been pretty much accepted by evangelicals. Now, sometimes we think, well, wait a second, should we be voting for somebody really crummy when we know that they're really bad? I think there's a difference between the November election and the primaries. When it comes to the primaries, you have a choice. And the question is, do I vote for the William F. Buckley model, which is find the most conservative, in our instance, the most biblically aligned guy that you can, and who can win, and support that person? That's the William F. Buckley. We're going to call it the pragmatist model. We want somebody as conservative as we can, but if they're too conservative and they can't win, then there's no point. So fine, just dial it back. Find somebody who's a little bit less conservative who you think can win and support that candidate. We'll call that the pragmatist view. On the other side, you've got the idealist view, which is, let's take a look at what the Bible happens to say about leaders, including pastors, even though we recognize we're not nominating a pastor, we're electing a president, but we can say that leadership qualities are listed for us in Titus and in 1 Timothy 2 and 3. We see some of the attributes of good leaders in the Old Testament. We see God talking about what makes somebody a man of integrity, what makes a good ruler in the Proverbs versus a bad ruler. And we go, okay, we assemble all that stuff, recognizing we're not voting for a pastor, and we pick the ideal candidate, whether they can win or not. Now, I think that those two camps exist in the primary season. Now, debating which one is correct, we're just going to set that aside for a moment. When it comes to the election, you've got two people. And now we are looking at potentially, now I'm just sharing with you what a lot of evangelicals are discussing, because there's so many people who dislike Donald Trump. So I'm not saying he's good or bad. I'm just saying there are a lot of people saying he's really bad. All right. So with that premise in mind, the historical understanding at the primary level, or at the presidential election level in November, is vote for the lesser of two evils. The idealist pragmatist thing is gone. That's a primary issue. Vote for the lesser of two evils. And now some evangelicals, and I've never heard this before, are saying both of our choices are really evil. Therefore, it is okay for the Christian to not vote in this election. If this is what they're saying, if it's Donald Trump, evil, and Hillary, evil, they're so bad if you vote for either one. Now, here's the logic. I'm just sharing it. The reasoning is that you are now participating in their evil. If you know they're both going to do bad things, then if you support them with your vote at the ballot box, you're supporting evil. Therefore, don't vote for anybody. That is a first.
Okay, let me ask you this. In the previous election with Romney and Obama, I think there were Christians who felt a similar way. Although Romney may have moral views that align with me, he's a Mormon, and as a Christian, I can't vote for him. Are you saying this didn't exist to that degree then, or was this also then?
You know, if we can say that the reason that evangelicals didn't vote for Mitt Romney is because of the Mormon issue, let's just assume that it was. I think that's a slightly different issue. Okay. They were concerned theologically. I was very concerned theologically, because anybody who becomes president, it brings whatever religion they're into the normal stream. And Mormonism has always been outside of Orthodox Christianity, so I was concerned theologically. All right. And I agree with you, though, that some evangelicals, they just didn't like him, so they didn't vote. This is different. What I'm seeing right now, Steve, is that high-profile evangelicals are starting to say to the folks who follow them, don't worry if you don't vote this year. Don't worry about it, because the lesser of two evils premise is busted.
Wow. You know, that concerns me greatly. I heard, and I'm trying to count the Supreme Court justices that could be replaced, but I heard that in the next president could decide up to 4 different Supreme Court justices, including the one seat that's gone now. And I think finally, I'm hoping people are realizing this alone could be a reason to decide on a candidate, just who they're going to put in the Supreme Court, because how that has impacted our lives. Do you think that is filtering down, or is the circus that we have been talking about on both the Democrat and Republican side, is that taking center stage, or are people, do you think, looking a little deeper?
Yeah, people are angry. I get it. It's been a huge disappointment, and people are just mad, but they're blind mad. That's how they're blindly just, I'm in such a rage. I don't care what this guy is like. Just poke him in the eyes, throw the bums out. Let's start fresh here and give this a go, because this old system hasn't been working. So that is a group of evangelicals who they don't care if the individual has been married and divorced a number of times, owns strip clubs, doesn't pay his bills to people that he owes money. Doesn't matter. Just get him. That's what we want. this group of individuals now that I'm now also concerned about are the evangelicals who might think, well, they're both evil, so I'm not going to vote. Yikes. The best analogy I could think of was the logic behind don't vote for either one because they're both evil is like saying don't run into that burning house if you can only save one person, because if the other 4 family members die, you're supporting the arsonist. No, you do the best you can with what you have so that you can do the most good possible. And I don't think that's an endorsement of evil. I don't think that anybody sees a vote as being that. Now, in the primary season, that's a different debate, idealism versus pragmatism, but not for the election. I still think the lesser of two evils rule applies.
All right, good consideration. In the few minutes we have left, I've understood that you are looking to the book of Ecclesiastes that can help people, a book that I think most people look at as kind of depressing. It will actually help our anxiety. Is that right?
Yeah. Because we can get so whipped up. Like, the world is just feet planted firmly in midair. It's just gone bonkers right in front of us, light speed. We are in this autonomous self-society. We're so self-centered. No God, no rules, no authority, me, my truth, my beliefs. And it's getting chaotic. I think it's going to lead us to reverting to I want a king, which is the human fallback position. I want a king. Give me a king, like the Jews in the Old Testament. I think that's the direction that we're headed, and it can cause us to be really anxious. And the wisest man ever comes along and says, what are you worried about? It's all nonsense. It's all worthless. It's all complete. It's pointless. All of it, whether it's food, entertainment, wine, women, song, education, politics, all worthless. And you go, well, that doesn't make me feel better, until you get to Ecclesiastes 12, 13, and 14, which says, if you're doing it for the Lord, it has value. So do things for God. Think about Him. And then you'll get the right perspective on earthly things.
You know, I think a lot of us have not looked at Ecclesiastes lately, and that wouldn't have been the first place that I would have thought to go for that. But you're absolutely right about that.
It just puts it in perspective. This realm, it's not irrelevant. But heavenly things, think about the place that He's preparing for us, and you won't be anxious.
Yeah, and that is a theme that one who is a Christian can take to those who are getting all ratcheted up, who don't seem to have any faith at all. I mean, I'm looking at the possible opportunities that we have to proclaim who Christ is amid all this chaos. And I think there's a difference between that and us getting wrapped up saying, well, I'm a Christian, so here's who you need to vote for. That's a whole different subject, because the integration, I think, of all of that is something that will have far more long-term value than just trying to get somebody to vote, for example, even though we have good intentions for all of that. Well, this is an exciting time to be here. I've never seen anything quite like this. In 30 seconds, what are you anticipating is going to happen between now and the general?
Well, what I see, just looking at it through a Christian filter, the world is becoming increasingly confused, and they're desperate for truth and a firm foundation. I don't think a presidential nominee is going to bring that for them. And so the church needs to look and say, is there anybody who can? Oh, yeah, the captain of our salvation who said, go and make disciples.
All right. Hey, it's not going to be the last discussion we have with Todd. A lot of great ideas. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Always a joy.
We will see you on more on Wretched TV. Todd Friel with us on Focus today. And stay tuned. We got more great programming right here on the Dove.